The sun in Jamestown was unforgiving, beating down on the earth with a kind of rage that left no shadow untouched. The air smelled of sea salt, diesel fumes, and roasted plantains. Life moved slowly here. Fishermen shouted over crates of tilapia. Vendors waved fans over charcoal fires. Children raced barefoot, their laughter mixing with the distant rhythm of high-life music playing from a cracked radio. From the back seat of a black Range Rover with tinted windows, Chuka MBA adjusted his sunglasses and stepped out. The door closed behind him with a muted thud. He wore linen slacks and a designer polo, casual but intentional. His watch cost more than every store on this street combined, but he had learned to downplay. Here, subtlety was survival, or at least he thought it was. His assistants flanked him like satellites, clipboard in hand. He was here to inspect a property, a potential investment site near the harbor. Nothing serious, just another box to check, another asset to flip. Then it happened. A flash of movement, a boy, no older than 10, dashed across the road with a tray of roasted plantains, balanced expertly on his head. Torn t-shirt, dirt-stained shorts, feet like leather from years of heat and stone. He weaved between moving cars and angry horns without flinching. Chuka barely noticed the child's poverty. That wasn't what froze him in place. It was the boy's wrist, a bracelet. Thick, gold-plated, lion head pendant at the center. The side cracked just slightly, a flaw he remembered too well. His breath caught. For a moment, he forgot where he was, forgot the heat, forgot the deal, that bracelet. 15 years ago, he had given it to someone, to Amma. His mind shattered backward in time. He remembered her crying on the rooftop in Johannesburg. Rain had soaked the city that night, tapping like fingers on the tin roof above their heads. Her eyes had shone with disbelief when he wrapped the bracelet around her wrist. "I'll come back for you," he had whispered, voice cracking. "This is a promise." Back then, he was just a scholarship kid. Broke, ambitious, burning with dreams. He couldn't afford. Amma was the opposite. Quiet, grounded, she cooked rice with palm oil and hummed old Ghanaian hymns while studying for nursing school. She made his roach-infested apartment feel like a home. He hadn't thought about her in years. Not really. Her memory had become like a favorite song from childhood, blurry at the edges, comforting and painful all at once. Until now. "Sir?" One of the assistants called. "You good?" Chuka blinked. "I need 5 minutes, alone." But the owners, "I said 5. He stepped away, crossing the street like a man possessed. The boy had disappeared. Chuka pushed through crowds, ignoring calls from vendors and murmurs from people starting to recognize him. There, the plantain stand. Smoke curled into the air. Behind it, an older woman in a headscarf turned skewers over hot coals, fanning the flames with a worn plastic plate. And there, standing beside her, licking plantain oil from his fingers, was the boy. The bracelet glinted on his wrist in the sunlight. Chuka's legs moved on instinct. His throat dried. "Where did you get that bracelet?" he asked hoarsely. The woman turned sharply. The boy froze mid-bite. "What?" she asked, frowning. "The bracelet," he pointed, voice cracking. "On his wrist. Where did he get it?" The woman narrowed her eyes, suddenly guarded. The boy looked up, confused. "It's mine," he said softly. "Who gave it to you?" Chuka's voice was almost a whisper now. The woman stepped in front of the boy. "Why do you care?" And then it happened. She looked at him. Really looked at him. Her eyes widened, not in recognition at first, but in disbelief. Then came the shift. Something behind her expression crumbled. "Chuka?" Her voice barely made it past her lips. It was both a question and an accusation. He opened his mouth to speak. Nothing came. It was Amma. They stood in silence, the noise of the market suddenly distant, like sound underwater. Ama's skin was darker than he remembered, her eyes deeper, more tired. She wore a faded wrapper, and her arms were lean from labor. But she still had that stillness, that quiet strength. "After all this time," she said, "you're alive." He nodded. "And rich." Another nod. The boy tugged at her wrapper. "Mommy? Who is he?" She looked at him, then back at Chuka. He's someone I used to know." They moved to the back of the stand, sitting on a wooden bench in the shade. Chuka's guards hovered nearby but didn't approach. He waved them off. Ama didn't. Offer him water. Didn't smile. "I thought you were dead," she said. "I told myself you had to be. Because if you weren't, then you left me on purpose." "I didn't know," he said. "I didn't know about him." She laughed, short and bitter. "That's the part you go to first? I mean it, I didn't know, Ama. You promised me. You looked me in the eyes and swore you'd come back. I got stuck. Life happened. My dad died. I had to support my family. And you forgot me?" He paused. "No, I buried you." She blinked, the words hitting her harder than he expected. "I buried you," he repeated quietly. "Because thinking of you hurt too much. Because I didn't know how to come back without shame. So I worked, I built, I survived." She stared at him. "And now you're what? Trying to dig me up?" Chuka looked at the boy, Kwame. He saw the same dimple, the same narrow nose, the same shape of ears. He swallowed hard. "What's his name?" "Kwame," she said. "Kwame Nkrumah Ba. You gave him your last name. I gave him the only name I could count on." A long pause. "He's mine, isn't he?" Chuka finally said. "You think I'd put your face on a boy and lie?" "I don't think anything. I just don't know what to do." Amma stood. "You do what every rich man does when the past catches up. You run or you pay." "I'm not here to run." "Then let's see if you stay." She walked away, leaving him with a question that would haunt him for days. Can a man return to a promise he once broke and make it whole again? That night, Amma couldn't sleep. She sat cross-legged on the thin mattress beside her son, who was already breathing softly, curled around the same lion head bracelet she once wore. The tiny fan on the floor spun weakly, cutting through the humid air with a low whir. Her eyes remained open. Chuka. 15 years of silence, and he had returned. Not in a dream, not in a letter, in flesh and blood. And with the same voice that used to whisper her name like a promise. She hated how her heart reacted. Back then, Amma had believed in simple things. Love, loyalty, beginnings. They were both students in Johannesburg. He was Nigerian, loud, brilliant, always full of ideas. She was studying community health and lived in the apartment below his. They bonded during a blackout, both laughing at how broke they were, sharing sardines and dry bread. Her life had been structured, predictable, until he came in like a storm. She taught him to eat with his hands properly. He taught her how to code simple HTML and swear in Yoruba. They had built a world with very little. Mattress on the floor, study notes taped to the wall, laughter that echoed through peeling paint. Then, his father got sick. He said he had to go back to Nigeria for a while. She didn't cry when he told her. She cried the morning he left, and that night, he gave her the bracelet. This is a promise. His exact words. She wore it every day, even after the weeks passed. Then the months, then the letters. 27, in total, sent to his email, his old hostel address, the only phone number he had scribbled in her notebook, all unanswered, and the sickness inside her began to grow. Not just the grief, the baby. When Amma's belly began to swell, the whispers started. She moved back to Ghana, shame wrapped around her like a second skin. Her parents took her in, reluctantly. Her father never looked her in the eye again. Her mother cried behind closed doors and prayed aloud every morning for her daughters, disgraced to vanish. Amma tried to work, cleaning, tutoring, anything. But jobs disappeared when bellies showed. She gave birth to Kwame during a thunderstorm, with a neighbor midwife holding her hand and oil lamps flickering against crumbling walls. When she first saw her son, her body trembled. He looked exactly like Chuka. The dimple, the eyes, the quiet fire behind the stare. She didn't have much to give him, but she gave him that bracelet, the only valuable thing she had left. Not for decoration, for identity. She whispered to him every night, "Someday your father will see you, and he will know." But as the years passed, she stopped believing it. Now, here he was, staring at the boy, looking stunned by the resemblance he could no longer deny. The next morning, Chuka came back. Amma saw him from the window. This time he came alone. No assistance, no tinted car. Just him in a plain shirt carrying a box of provisions. She sighed. "Kwame," she called. "Go inside and wash your hands." The boy obeyed. Chuka stood at the gate holding the box awkwardly, like it was heavier than it really was. "I'm not here to bribe you," he said before she could speak. "I just didn't know what else to do." She crossed her arms. "You left without a word, Chuka. You're not going to undo that with tins of milk and a bag of rice." "I know." "Then why are you here?" He looked past her, toward the window where Kwame's head peeked through the curtains. "Because I need to know him." She was quiet for a long time. Then finally, "You want to know him? Show up. That's it. No gifts, no speeches. Just be here." And so, he came again and again. At first, Amma made him sit outside. He waited on a stool beside the mango tree while Kwame played with pebbles or drew shapes in the dirt. The boy didn't ask questions at first, he just stared. Then one day, he walked over. "Why do you come here?" Kwame asked. Chuka hesitated. "Because I like talking to you." The boy tilted his head. "You don't know me?" "I want to." Kwame thought about that. "Do you know my mommy?" "Yes." "For how long?" "A long time ago." The boy looked at the bracelet. "She says it's magic." Chuka smiled faintly. "She's not wrong." As days passed, Kwame began to open up. He showed Chuka his school notebooks, his math scores, a crumpled drawing of a plane he wanted to build. "I want to be an engineer," he said one day. Chuka raised an eyebrow. "A pilot and an engineer?" "Yes. So when I break a plane, I can fix it." Chuka laughed. "Fair enough." Amma watched them from a distance, never joining, always listening. She didn't know whether to feel relieved or terrified. A week later, Chuka arrived with a brand new tablet. Kwame's eyes lit up until Amma stepped in. "No." Chuka blinked. "What?" "He doesn't need that. It's just, you heard me." Her voice was calm but firm. "You can't buy a connection with electronics. I wasn't trying to." "You've had money for years, Chuka. Where was all this generosity then?" "I didn't know he existed." "You didn't want to know." She handed the tablet back to him. "If you really want to give him something," she added, "give him your time, your presence, your truth." That night, Chuka couldn't sleep. He sat alone in his hotel suite, the city lights flickering outside, memories crashing against him like waves. He stared at the bracelet on the table, the twin of the one Kwame wore. He had kept his all these years, buried deep in a drawer. Why? He didn't even know anymore. Was it guilt? Shame? Hope? He reached for his phone. After a long pause, he searched discreetly for a clinic in Accra. The next morning, He made a quiet appointment. No PR staff, no press, just him, and a simple request. I need a DNA test, privately, quietly, for peace of mind. Not because he doubted Amma, but because some truths, even the obvious ones, needed proof to become real. The envelope trembled slightly in Chuka's hands. He sat at the small desk in his hotel room, staring at it like it was a landmine. On the table beside him, the twin lion head bracelet rested silently, gleaming under the soft lamplight. He peeled the seal open. About 9% paternal match. Of course, he knew the answer before the paper confirmed it. Still, reading it cracked something inside him that words hadn't been able to reach. Kwame was his son, his. And now, he couldn't pretend to stand on the sidelines of a life he helped create and abandon. He flew back to Lagos the next day. It was evening when he walked into the penthouse. The skyline flickered beyond the tall glass windows. Elena sat on the sofa, legs crossed, wine glass balanced between manicured fingers. "You're back," she said, not looking up from her phone. He didn't reply immediately. He slipped off his jacket, tossed it over the couch. The silence dragged. Finally, she raised her eyes. "You're acting strange. Did something happen on the trip?" Chuka's heart pounded. There was no elegant way to say it. "I have a son," he said. The glass in her hand didn't shatter, but something in her expression did. "What?" "I found out while I was in Ghana. It's from before us. Long before. I didn't know. I swear I didn't." She stood slowly. Her lips parted, but no words came out. "His name is Kwame," Chuka continued. "He's 10, Elena blinked. "So you just found out you have a 10-year-old child, and your first instinct is to confess like a martyr? I'm not looking for praise." She gave a short, bitter laugh. "Well, you're not getting it. I didn't lie to you, Elena. I didn't know." "No, you just omitted a whole woman from your past. Convenient." She tried to reach me. Letters, messages. I never read them. That's on me. She stepped closer, her voice sharp. "And what are you planning to do? Set them up in a house? Pay for his school? Put them in the tabloids? I want to be in his life." Elena's face shifted from anger to something colder. Calculating. "Do you know what this will do to your image? The investors? The board? You're supposed to be the man who came from nothing with integrity. Now they'll say you abandoned a woman and a child." "I did abandon her," Chuka admitted softly. "And I can't undo that, but I can stop pretending I'm proud of the man I became while hiding it." She didn't speak again. That night, he slept in the guest room, and in the morning, she was gone. The scandal broke by the end of the week. Billionaire CEO fathered secret child in Ghana. Tech mogul's past catches up. Woman raises child alone for 10 years after broken promise. The blogs had no mercy. Headlines multiplied. Podcasts speculated. Anonymous sources claimed he was hiding more. Stock prices fluctuated. His board summoned him. Some directors looked panicked. Others looked disgusted. One simply said, "Damage, control." Chuka sat through the meeting like a man on trial. "We can help spin this," the PR rep said. "Frame it as an emotional reunion. Maybe include photos. The mother, what's her name?" "Leave Amma out of this," he said sharply. "You don't have that luxury anymore," someone muttered. He stood. "I won't drag a woman who raised my son alone into a media circus," he said. "I built this company. I gave it my name. But if being honest means I lose it, so be it." There was a stunned silence. Then someone asked, "Are you resigning?" Chuka looked around the table. These were the people who praised his vision, who called him the face of African innovation. Now they only saw liability. "I'm stepping down," he said. No one clapped. He walked out with his head high, but his heart hollow. Back in Accra, Amma opened the door to find him standing outside. With a suitcase and no entourage. I stepped down, he said simply. She frowned. From your company? He nodded. Why? Because I couldn't live a lie anymore. Amma stared at him, searching for the catch. She didn't find one. You left your mansion to come here? I left my mask, he replied. Chuka moved. Into a modest apartment 4 blocks from Amma's stand. The place had peeling paint, faulty plumbing, and a mattress on the floor. But it was real. Each morning, he'd walk to the market. Sit under the mango tree. Wait for Kwame to return from school. They played chess, studied math, shared snacks, talked about soccer. One afternoon, Kwame pointed at a headline on a passing newspaper stand. That's you. Chuka didn't flinch. Yeah. Are you in trouble? I was, he said. But not the kind police chase you for, the kind you carry in your chest. Kwame nodded, as if he understood far more than his age allowed. Are you my daddy? The question came like a thunderclap under blue skies. Chuka swallowed. Do you want me to be? Kwame considered it. You're not mean. And you listen. Mommy says real daddies don't leave twice. Chuka's throat tightened. Then I'll never leave again. He began picking Kwame up from school. Sometimes Amma let him help with dinner. Other days, she barely spoke to him. But she didn't send him away. She watched. Watched as her son beamed when Chuka praised his handwriting. Watched as Chuka sat through storms without retreating. One night, as the rain pounded their corrugated roof, Amma stepped onto the porch. Chuka was under the tree, soaked, notebook on his lap, helping Kwame with science revision. Amma called softly, "You'll catch a fever, you know." He looked up, hair dripping. "Then I'll earn it." She almost smiled. Almost. Later that night, she sat with Chuka on the front steps. Kwame had gone to bed, tired from giggles and multiplication tables. "You really left everything?" she asked. He nodded. "And what will you do now?" "I don't know. But I'm not chasing applause anymore." She looked at him in the dark. "I don't trust you," she said. "Not yet. I don't blame you. But I see the way Kwame looks at you, and..." "I'm not blind. You're changing," he didn't reply. He just sat there, eyes on the stars, drenched in stillness, and somewhere between two worlds, the one he built with ego and the one he abandoned out of fear, Chuka found something he didn't know he needed. A place to begin again. The question came on an ordinary evening, quiet, humid, the sky smeared with orange and lilac. Chuka had just set down a bowl of sliced mangoes when Kwame asked it, his voice low but clear. "Why didn't you come back?" Chuka froze. The fruit knife hovered above the wooden cutting board. The silence in the room felt too big for the three of them. Amma looked up from where she sat, folding laundry on the floor. She didn't say a word. Her eyes didn't encourage or interfere. This was Chuka's moment. He set the knife down carefully and turned to face his son. "I was scared," he said. Kwame tilted his head. "Of what?" "Of not being enough, of being poor again, of seeing your mom and not knowing how to fix what I broke." Kwame frowned. "But you said you'd come back. Mommy said you gave her a bracelet and promised." "I did." Chuka's voice cracked. "And I meant it, but meaning something and doing it aren't always the same. I got caught up trying to survive, and I thought, if I came back with nothing, I'd only hurt her more." "You didn't even call," Kwame whispered. "I know." Chuka lowered his head. "That's the part I regret most. I thought she'd move on. I thought maybe you both were better off without me." "Were we?" The boy's voice was like a knife, not sharp with anger, but blunt with innocence. Chuka didn't answer. Kwame stood, walked to him, and without warning, threw his arms around his waist. "I just want you to stay." Chuka froze. His arms hovered, then wrapped tightly around the boy's small shoulders. He shut his eyes and felt something fracture, then settle inside his chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but grace. After that, things shifted. Amma started letting Chuka help more. He chopped vegetables in the evenings, carried water, walked Kwame to school, learned how to scrub clothes on stone again. His hands, once softened by air conditioning and conference rooms, turned rough. He made mistakes, forgot to salt the rice, burned the plantains once. Amma rolled her eyes but didn't scold. Some nights she even laughed. One evening, as Kwame slept, Amma and Chuka sat on overturned buckets in the backyard. The city buzzed faintly in the distance. "You've changed," she said quietly. "I had to." Amma didn't smile, but she didn't turn away either. "I've been offered a job," she said after a pause. "Teaching in Kumasi." Chuka's body stiffened. "Kumasi?" She nodded. "It's a good school, good pay, housing included." He stared at the ground. "You're leaving?" "I have to," she said. "I need a new chapter, one that's mine, where people don't look at me and whisper, 'That's the woman he left.'" Chuka swallowed hard. "Can I come with you?" Amma didn't answer right away. "You can visit," she said finally. "But this part, I need to do it alone. For Kwame, for me. Is it because you don't trust me? It's because I finally trust myself." That hurt more than a slap. But Chuka understood. He had forced her to rebuild her life alone. Now she was claiming it with both hands. And maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a goodbye, just a shift. In the days that followed, Amma began to pack their things. She didn't make it a dramatic exit. There were no tears, no big speeches. Kwame was excited about the new school. He told Chuka he'd draw a map of Kumasi so he wouldn't get lost when visiting. On their final morning in Accra, the neighbors gathered to say goodbye. Chuka stood by the car, helping Amma load bags. She looked tired but firm. Not broken, never broken, just certain. Kwame ran up, holding a folded sheet of paper. "I made this," he said, handing it to Chuka. Inside was a drawing, a stick figure family, Amma, Kwame in the middle, and Chuka on the other side. Holding both their hands, above it in big uneven letters, "Our family, even if different." Chuka blinked fast, trying not to let the tears show. Then he reached into his bag. Wrapped in blue cloth was a small chain, forged from both lion head bracelets, melted and reforged into one. "I want you to have this," he told Kwame. "When you're older, you can split it again or keep it together. Up to you." Kwame gasped and hugged it to his chest. "Promise you'll come visit?" "Every chance I get." Amma watched them, said nothing, but as she opened the car door, she looked back at Chuka. No anger, no bitterness, just a quiet, tired kind of peace. And maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something that didn't need to be named. The car drove off. Dust kicked into the air. Chuka stood there long after they disappeared, hand on the drawing, lion head pendant in his pocket, and the certainty that this time he wouldn't forget. He would find a way not to undo the past, but to honor it. 2 years later, the world had mostly moved on. The headlines faded. Boardroom whispers died down. The podcasts picked another scandal to dissect. In the tech world, Chuka MBA became a name referenced in past tense. The guy who stepped away, the one who walked from power. But in Kumasi, in a quiet corner of the city with red dust roads and mango trees older than memory, Chuka became something else entirely. A man who stayed. He no longer wore suits. Most days, his shirt was wrinkled from sitting on mats, teaching JavaScript to teenagers in a church basement. He mentored young developers quietly, anonymously, through a boot camp called Roots and Code. No PR, no public speeches, just real work. He rented a modest apartment, 2 rooms, no driver. Every month he traveled across town to Kwame's school, bringing new books, gadgets for science class, and, more importantly, his time. Kwame had grown taller, leaner. His voice now carried a slight rasp, like a lion cub learning to roar. Was 12, and brilliant. He devoured books on mechanics, electricity, and programming, drew airplane schematics in the margins of his math notebooks. His eyes lit up with every new question, every challenge. "You know what I want to be now?" he asked one afternoon. Chuka looked up from the circuit board they were fixing. "What?" "A man who shows up." Chuka stopped, blinked, and smiled. "Then you're already halfway there." Amma had changed too. She now taught at one of the most respected secondary schools in Kumasi. Parents requested her by name. Students wrote her essays about how she made science feel like magic. She wore her hair in neat braids and carried herself with a quiet grace, the kind of presence that filled a room without noise. She had not remarried, not because her heart was closed, but because it was finally full. She had built a life defined not by abandonment, but by strength, dignity, and choice. Her relationship with Chuka was simple. They spoke often, brief chats after school meetings, warm discussions about Kwame's future, no tension, no old wounds, bleeding at the edges. Time had not erased their history, but it had transformed it. One afternoon, she and Chuka sat in the courtyard of the school while Kwame ran laps with his classmates. Amma sipped her tea. "You've changed," she said. Chuka nodded. "I had to." She looked at him, eyes soft. "You know, I stopped waiting for you long before you came back." "I know. But when you finally did, I realized I wasn't waiting anymore. I was just ready to forgive. Not for you. For me." Chuka exhaled. "Thank you." They sat in comfortable silence, the hum of children in the background. Then Amma added, "You became the kind of man I hoped you would be. Just not for me." Chuka didn't flinch. "I know." And somehow, that truth didn't sting. It just settled. On the morning of Kwame's 12th birthday, the boy burst into the kitchen with excitement. "Today's the day," Amma laughed. "We noticed," he grinned. "Will Daddy come?" "Of course," she said. "He never misses the important days." Kwame beamed. Chuka arrived just after lunch. He brought a cake shaped like a circuit board, a used but fully functional drone, and, in a small flat box, something else. They sat under the mango tree, just the two of them, while Amma watched from the window. "I have something for you," Chuka said. Kwame opened the box slowly. Inside was a neck, chain modest but solid, and at its center, a single pendant, the lion heads. 2 of them, melded into one. Kwame stared at it, eyes wide. "Is this?" "These were the 2 bracelets," Chuka said. "Mine and your mom's. I had them joined, not to erase what happened, but to remind us that even broken things can be made new." Kwame traced the pendant with his fingers. "It's like the past and the future together." Chuka smiled. "Exactly." The boy put it around his neck with pride. "I love it." They sat quietly for a while. Then Kwame asked, "Do lions get second chances?" Chuka looked at him. "Only the ones who survive long enough to earn them." Kwame nodded. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, they took a photo together, Amma, Kwame, and Chuka, standing beneath the mango tree. No forced smiles, just the gentle glow of something honest. A family. Different. Imperfect. But still a family. When Chuka left that night, Amma walked him to the gate. "You never said why you kept your bracelet all those years," she said softly. Chuka looked up at the stars. "Because I couldn't let go of the man who gave it. Even when I hated him," she nodded. "And who are you now?" He paused, then said, "I'm someone who's trying to keep the promises that matter, even if I'm late." Amma didn't reply. She didn't need to. Her silence was no longer a wall. It was peace. As he walked away from the compound, the lion pendant swinging gently against his son's chest, Chuka finally understood something he had run from for far too long. Being a man wasn't about what you build, or how much you earn, or how perfectly you plan. It was about the vows you choose to honor, especially the ones you almost forgot. Not the promise you made once, but the one you fight to keep when it costs you everything. And for the first time in years, Chuka no longer wondered where the lion stood. He knew the lion stood here, right here. If you made it to the end, comment Lionheart, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends and family.